Hey everyone, Dr. D here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use these micropipetters. Sometimes they call these pipettemen. So why use micropipetters? Well, let's say you're in the lab and you want to work with volumes that is smaller than what typically goes into a test tube. You see, this is a test tube, and normally you're dealing with milliliters. This is about 9 milliliters of solution inside of a test tube. So if you're dealing with a test tube, you're going to be using things that measure out milliliters, like these pie pumps. But if you're not working with this amount of solution, that's a lot of solution. If you're working with this amount, this is a milliliter, right? Or less. A lot of times, especially in molecular biology labs, biochemistry labs, you're dealing with this much solution or less, sometimes a lot less than this. So what do you do if you've got less than a milliliter to deal with? So in that case, you're going to want to use micropipetters, which these are designed to work in the microliter range. So what's a microliter? So this is a milliliter, like I said, the milliliter. And this is the same thing. Here's a milliliter of solution. When you're dealing with milliliters, usually you deal with test tubes, but once you go lower than a milliliter, you want to deal with these tubes. These are like the test tubes of the biochemistry world, of the molecular biology world. You see, these are called not test tubes, but microcentrifuge tubes. And if you look here, you might be able to see it on the side. Yeah, there we go. If you look here, you can put up to 1.5 milliliters of solution into this tube. So this is a perfect tube for dealing with tiny concentrations of solution. And just like, if you remember, this is a liter, and a liter has 1,000 milliliters in it. 1,000 milliliters in a liter. Okay, and what's a milliliter? This much. This is 1,000th of a liter. Well, guess what? A microliter is 1,000 times smaller than that. So the difference between this and this, okay, is the difference between this and a microliter. So you can imagine a microliter is very tiny. It's 10 to the minus 6 milliliters. 10 to the minus 6 liters. A milliliter is 10 to the minus 3 liters, and a microliter is 10 to the minus 6 liters. So that's a tiny, tiny, tiny volume, but not so tiny that we don't need to be working with it. In the biochemistry lab, like I said, a lot of times you're dealing with microliters. So you're going to use these microcentrifuge tubes. By the way, a lot of times they call these Eppendorf tubes. You know why? Because Eppendorf is the company that produces them. And just like people call standard tissues, like if I say, hey, pass me some tissues, they'll call this a Kleenex. Why? Not because this is actually called a Kleenex. It's actually called a facial tissue. But people call it Kleenex because, Kleenex is the most common brand of facial tissue. Well, Eppendorf is the company that most commonly makes these tubes, so these are known as Eppendorf tubes or epi tubes, so I'll just call it an epi tube from now on, although be aware that these are actually called microcentrifuge tubes. So again, this is 1 ml of solution, and let's say I want to transfer 0.5 ml into here. So what would 0.5 ml be? 0.5 ml would mean 500 microliters. So 1 ml is 1,000 microliters. If I want to transfer 0.5 into here, that means that I want to transfer 500 microliters into here. So how would I do that? Let's talk about that real quick. So let me introduce the pipetters. These are called micropipetters or pipettemen. There are different size pipettemen. Here's the biggest one that you're going to probably come across. This guy, if you look at the top, normally they tell you what they're called at the top here. It's called the P1000. So this is the pipettemen for 1,000 microliters. So what that tells me is that this Pipettemen works to a maximum of 1,000 microliters. And again, what's 1,000 microliters? I just told you what 1,000 microliters is. 1,000 microliters means exactly this amount right here, a milliliter. So what did I say I want to transfer into this tube? I wanted to transfer 500 microliters, right? So let me explain a little bit more about this. So let's see if we can get that done. So right here you have a plunger, okay? The Micropipetter has a plunger, and it has this other button here that's called the extractor. It extracts the tips, okay? And over here, notice that there are 3 numbers, right? 1, 2, and 3. It kind of looks like the odometer on your car, right? 100. So the top number is the thousands number. The second number, the middle number here is the hundreds. And then the third number is the tens. And the ones are actually the notches on the bottom of the bottom number down there. So right now, what is it set at then, do you think? It's 100. What do you think it's set at? Well, it's actually a little bit off. Let me get it perfect. There we go. It's actually set at 1,000 microliters, which is what? A milliliter. So is that how much I wanted to transfer to my tube? No, I wanted to transfer 500, right? So what do? Well, can I do that? Well, let's see. So again, this is called the P1000 Pipettemen, which means that it's accurate up to 1,000 microliters. But what's the bottom of that scale? Up to 1,000, but what's the lowest amount I can aliquot with this Pipettemen? Well, the general rule of thumb is these are accurate to about 10% of the maximum. So what's the maximum? 1,000 microliters. So what would be 10% of 1,000 microliters? That's right, 100 microliters. So I would use this anywhere between 100 and 1,000 microliters. Okay, I'm sorry, shook the camera a little bit. So how would I get it down to 500 so I can make sure I aliquot only 500 and I'm not aliquoting more than 500? So there's a black wheel right here. Okay, this wheel spins. Okay, notice how, watch this, see? If I turn it, it spins. And when I'm turning this wheel, the numbers are moving on the little scale here. Okay, the settings are changing. Now, here's the thing. Look at this. If it's already set to 100, that's the maximum setting, right? Do I want to turn it so the numbers are going up? No, because I'm already at the maximum, right? 100 is the maximum. So what do I need to do? I need to turn it so the numbers are going down, correct? So I'm going to turn the wheel. You see, I'm turning the wheel like this. And the numbers are digressing like this. See, so I've got to turn quite a bit. You see now I'm at 800, 700, 600. Takes a while. 500. And how am I going to get 500 exactly? Let's try to get 500 exactly. Oh, too much. Watch this. 500. Now look at that down there. See that notch right there? That's 500 on the button. So what would this be? Let's see. It goes, that would be 502. That would be 504. 508. Wait, 2, 4. Oh, 6. I skipped 6. 6, 8, 510. Does that make sense? So 500. That's 500. I'm sorry if it's a little bit blurry. I'm trying to get it to focus. So this would be 500, 502, 504, 506, 508, and 510. Okay, but I said I want 500. So let's go 500. So now it's set for aliquoting 500 microliters. Now remember, what's the lowest I could set this to and still be accurate? That's right, 010, which would correspond to 100 microliters. I cannot go any lower than that. Okay, so how do I get this to work? These P1000s actually use the bigger tips. You see up here, this is a box of tips. I never put this tip into the solution directly because guess what? that's going to be terrible. I'm going to suck up solution into the device, and it's not good. These are absolutely not to be used without this disposable tips. So let me open up this box of tips. You see, these are the tips for the pipetter. Let me go ahead and tap, tap, tap. Okay, so now I've got the disposable tip on here. Okay, this is a disposable tip. All right, here's my epi tube. I'm going to pop it open. Okay, they make a nice satisfying pop sound when you open them up. So here's something very important. Okay, you think I'm just going to suck up solution, right? How hard can it be? Well, you could actually mess this up. All right, so let me explain this real quick. This is actually super important. All right, let me show you why. If I push down on this plunger, okay, if I push down on this plunger, it stops moving. Okay, you see, look, I'm pushing, it stopped moving. But if I push really hard, look what happens. Yeah, it goes way further, right? So there are two stops, aren't there? You push till it stops. It stopped. Now, if I really push hard, it keeps going. So there's a second stop. Why is that the case? Here's what you need to understand, right? This is really, really important. When you're sucking up solutions, you push till the first stop, and that's it. Okay? That's it. You do not go to the second stop when you're sucking up solution. You go to the second stop when you're, dispensing the solution. So let me show you what to do proper. I'm pushing till it stops. Okay? Push till it stops. Open up your container with the satisfying pop. Put the tip into the solution. Make sure you actually see the tip in the solution. Then very slowly release your thumb. Okay, don't just release it really quick. Slowly release your thumb, and look what happens. Great. Look at that. No air bubbles in there. Looks perfect, doesn't it? So close that up. See, 500 microliters are left in my tube, and 500 microliters are now in my pipette. And here's my new tube, right? What do? I place it in the tube. You can even touch the tip to the side of the tube. And then what do? I push my thumb, right? Very slowly, push, and look how the solution comes out. Now what do? I've reached the first stop. So now, without removing it, I push till the second stop just to make sure to expel everything. Then I get the tip out of there, and then I release my thumb. Does that make sense? And then I close this, and now I have 500 microliters in there. And what do I do with this tip? This tip is disposable. So to dispose of it, you simply grab a container. Do I have a container here actually? Boop doo. I'll dispose of this napkin later. But if you push this other button here, this is called the extractor. And when you push that, notice what happens. It just extracts the tip, and the tip goes flying somewhere where you can't find it. So just make sure you're pointing at the trash receptacle, and then you push the extractor, and that will extract the tip into the trash. Okay? So that's how you do it. That's really simple. Now look at this. Again, what do we have at this point? We have, yeah, it even tells you. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. Let me show you what I'm talking. Oh, there goes that one. I know it's hard to see. Sorry. Let's see if oh yeah, see that? 0.5 ml in this tube. And if I can find the other tube that went on a voyage. Here's the other tube. And how much do we have in this tube? Also, that's right, you guessed it, 0.5 ml in this tube as well. So now I have 0.5 in here, 0.5 in here. So what if I want to use less than 100 microliters? This worked out great for 500, but can I use the P1000 for, let's say, 80 microliters? No, I don't want to use this guy for 80 microliters. That's why there are different pipettemen. So look at this. This guy is called the, let's see if I can show you, the P200. So what do you think this goes up to? Well, this Pipettemen goes up to 200 microliters, which means if we look at its little dial, oh, it's already set at its max, isn't it? Look at this. It's set at 200, which means it's set to its maximum setting. And if you were to guess, what would be the lowest that you could set this to and still be accurate? Do you guys remember the rule of 10%? So 200 is the maximum. What's the lowest you could go with this Pipettemen? That's right, 20 microliters, right? So it would be 0 to 0. So, and how much did I say I want to transfer from this to the next tube? I said 80, right? Okay, so let me turn this. Again, this wheel turns. Do I want to turn it so the numbers advance higher? No, I want to turn it so the numbers advance low or decrease, right? So I'm turning it in the 170s. I'm in the 160s, 150s, 40s, 30s, 12, 110, 100, 90, and what did I say I want? 80. Let's say I want 84. Okay, so that would be 80, right? Let's say I want 84. How would I do that? 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 84. 84. What if I wanted 84.4 or 84.5? How would I do that? 84.2, 84.4, 84.5. There you go. That's 84.5. You see how it works? So I have 84.5. Okay. And by the way, you see how small this tip is? The big blue disposable tips won't work. You see, they're too big. So we have smaller tips here. These are smaller tips that we can use here. So go ahead and tap, 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 right? So now you've got one of these smaller tips, disposable tips. And what do? We want to suck up the solution. So do we push to the first stop or to the second stop? We push to the first stop, right? Remember that. Then what do? Satisfying pop. We go into our solution, make sure the tip is in the solution. Then we slowly release the button. Okay, and look at that. Look at that. We've got, do we have bubbles in there? If you have bubbles in there, you can push them out and suck it back up. Yeah, see, no bubbles. No bubbles in the tip. It looks great. Okay, close this one. Grab the next epi tube. Place the tip in there and slowly push the button. And then go to the second stop, right? And then don't let go until you've fully brought the tip out of the epi tube. Okay, and then you can let go of the button. Close this and look at this. That is actually 80 microliters. 80 microliters there. Okay, and what do? Again, when you eject the tip, you push the ejector button and that spits the tip out into the trash. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And by the way, again, so I would use this Pipettemen if I want to go between 20 and 200. If I have less, let's say I want to do 10 ml or 10 microliters, I should say, I could use the P100. This guy is accurate between 100 and 10. And if I want even less, look at this. This one's called the P20. This one's called the P20. It's a baby. It's just a baby Pipettemen. So this guy is accurate between 200, which would be 20 microliters. And how low do you think this one would go? If 20 is the max, that's right. You could go all the way down to 2 microliters with this guy. You could go all the way down to 2 microliters. So this Pipettemen can measure accurately down to 2 microliters. That's pretty amazing. There are even smaller ones. There's the P2 as well. There's actually a Pipettemen called the P2. I don't have it in my private collection here, but that's how it works. That's how you use Pipettemen correctly. By the way, these tips are not autoclaved, but if they were, I would want to make sure not to actually touch them because they would be no longer sterile. Okay, so just be aware of that. A lot of times you'll see autoclave tape on top of these boxes, and that will show you that the tips have been autoclaved and they are sterile. If the tips are autoclaved and sterile, then you want to be really careful and quick when you grab your pipettemen, set it to the right setting, you open it up, you grab your tip, and you're out, and you close the top. You make sure not to touch the tip anywhere. If you touch the tip anywhere, it's no longer sterile, and you might as well eject it. All right, so hopefully that made a lot of sense for you. This is what I was working on and working with. These tools were in my hands daily, on the daily, when I was a PhD student at UT Southwestern. So I was, all but getting carpal tunnel using these every day, all day. So I can answer any questions you have about these pipettemen. Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you learned something, and I'll catch you next time.